So let's take the example of Danielle, a CHRO, in fact, Judy, who says, I get invited to the dance. I've got a story. I am active on LinkedIn. People know me, they talk about me, and yet my interviews fall or feel flat. What does Danielle need to think about in that moment so that she keeps going on her journey and doesn't stop there? How does she land the offer, in other words?
And she's got to begin to start to express that value proposition. Not just what you did. I mean, myself, 30 years of HR, I've dealt with everything unions, I've dealt with hiring, I've downsized, built departments, brought departments down. Yes, but keep in mind, those other one or two candidates that she's competing with have probably done the same thing. What value is Danielle bringing to the table for those companies? How did she help them to be successful? Particularly for CHRO, I go into work and I might have two or three things that are critical that I need to do, but there are fires happening all day long. And some of them I could have never anticipated. So, how, with all of these complexities and things going on, how does she keep the ship running smoothly? I used to say to folks, don't misunderstand that when you look at me in a crisis, that I'm not losing it because I know that everyone else is looking at me to drive this and get us through COVID. So I knew everyone was looking at me to say, Judy, are we safe? Are we okay? And so I had to hold that line to say, yes, we're going to be okay. What do you need? What can I do to provide you? Make sure they're successful. Let's look at the organization. And I was at the School of Dental Medicine where people were still in the middle of COVID, no vaccine, nothing. That if there was an emergency service, we had to perform some dental work on these people. So that created a whole lot of anxiety. But you've got to make sure we go in and as a CHRO, how we held that company together in difficult times, but also what are the great things that you did to bolster that employee population, to make sure it was a thriving organization. So she probably needs to work, Danielle, on her value proposition. What are the things that she's done for those previous organizations that drew them to be a profitable, well-founded, well organization that went from here to there, and those sorts of things. So I talk about um, how I transformed these organizations, what programs I brought to the organization that were solving a need that they had. And I've already done my research on this company. So in many cases, I kind of know what their need is, but I will add one caveat. Almost every interview I've ever been on, they say to me, Judy, the problem is X. And when I get to the company, the problem really is Y. Because no, so one of the things in my own interview, I say, I'm going to do my due diligence once I get here to figure out what is the root cause of these problems and then form a team of people so we can work together to own the solutions. So I just think she's got to step back and go back and don't do any more interviews yet. Go get a coach. Come to ExecNet. But you really do need to be able to communicate what that value proposition is so that you can make sure that you solidify that and then get the offer.
Yeah. Mark.
Yeah, so I'm ready to coach her. Bring her on. And where I would go is, so she's
Well,
getting
Danielle, if you're
invited to the,
listening,
yeah, she's getting invited to the dance. That's great. Not getting, not being asked to dance. Okay.
Yeah.
So I changed metaphor if that's okay.
Yes.
A couple of things I would work on, or I'd investigate, because we're not sure this is hypothetical, but I would first look at, as she prepares to do for an interview, what type of due diligence is she doing? Is she really sharp on what the company or the organization's needs are? And understanding, given those needs, how she could position herself uniquely to meet those needs. And then putting an additional point on what Judy was talking about, the value prop. I would expect someone, we're hiring somebody at an executive level, they should know how to do what they do. Okay. I'm not looking for competency. I'm looking beyond that. I expect everybody in the room to be competent and skilled and accomplished. I'm looking for keen insight. Let me know in that interview when I'm presenting myself that you've been there and done it, and you've been through and found the way to navigate through the hairiest challenges, that's relevant to this organization. And maybe they're at the point of they're reimagining themselves, reorganizing, going through difficult times, trying to revamp is a reason, maybe re-energize an operation organization that has maybe been underperforming, facing fierce competition, whatever it is. I'd find a way to latch onto that and let them know I have, been through that, bumped my way along the way and found the way to make it work, and give me keen insight. Just don't show me competency. And I think that's second. Third, this goes to someone who's been doing, a job well. It's often mental gymnastics for some of the executives we work with is to net out their story. So when they're presenting themselves, they do that in a very succinct way. Again, talk about the value they bring, not what they've done initially, and be able to really articulate that crisply and clearly. So be brilliant, be brief, and be gone with the answer. Versus the more experience we have, the more tendency we have to talk a lot. And often that doesn't play well. So I would look at that and maybe put a finer tune on the prep and talk about how they're positioning themselves, showing keen value, and doing that in a very crisp and compelling way. So those are some among other areas I'd be looking at. So bring her on. I'm ready for the challenge. It'd be fun. Love to help people.
I would also say to
Yeah.
Danielle, relax, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a conversation. We often think of it as something far more, oh, I don't know, pressure filled than what it truly is, which is it's two people getting to know each other a bit. And for what it's worth, what means a lot to me when I've interviewed people and decided I want to work with you is, do I want to pull into the company parking lot in the morning and see that person's car or not? Because if I don't, something's just not right. But if I do, I'm excited to work with Danielle today. And I think that vibe starts during that interview process as well, because you get to know each other a bit.
I want to just add one more thing too, though. Most people are not comfortable. So don't feel as you're listening to us and you say, oh, I just don't feel comfortable doing that. It's takes even for us, Mark is one of our coaches, and this is called your value conversation, but it takes 3 coaching sessions where you're practicing in between, because when you start to interview, you have to be smooth. This has to be natural, but it's not something natural for anybody. And so you need some of that coaching to kind of help you through that process, because you're not boasting, you're not bragging, but you're just sharing what you can bring to the table. And sometimes that gets a little awkward.